Live. Hey, everybody, welcome in. Welcome in. And as people are starting to join, I want to start with something that's been on my mind. I want you to think about this. What if your biggest revenue opportunity isn't attracting more guests, but serving guests already inside your gates better? And here's another one for you to think about. How much revenue is being lost every single day because of friction you can't actually see? Long waits, slow service, staffing challenges, inconsistent experiences. But here's the thing: today's conversation may sound like it's about beverages, but it really isn't. It's about systems, it's about guest behavior, it's about operational excellence, and it's about creating moments where guests say yes. I love that. I love like the yes experience, because sometimes the biggest opportunity in your business is not hiding in places you stopped paying attention to years ago. It's and I think it's one of them, right? For everyone joining us live, drop a comment, maybe a clap, a hand, show us something you're here, like, share this conversation. We'd love for you to share this. Love for you to, oh, you know what? Sorry. If you watch my last show, we've got mugs. First 5 people who like and subscribe to our new YouTube channel. If you post a comment, let us know that you're here. We'll go ahead and get you one of my new Live with Sondra mugs. So go ahead and make those comments. All right, let's get started with this show. All right, we're back. Hi, everyone. This is Live with Sondra, and we are going to talk about the business behind attraction experiences and what it really takes to create a place that guests will never forget. I'm your host, Sondra Shannon, CEO of Gatemaster Technology, and today we're talking about one of the most overlooked opportunities in our industry, because beverage isn't just about beverage anymore. It isn't about a simple soda machine in the corner. It's about the guest experience. It's about speed, operations. It's about staffing. It's about per cap spending. And when it's done right, it becomes one of the highest margin opportunities in your business. We spend a lot of time talking about attendance and getting guests through the gate, but once they walk through your gates, every interaction matters. Every line, every purchase, every delay, and every moment where a guest either says yes or walks away. And today's conversation is really about what happens after they enter your park. So before we jump in, I want to take a moment to give our brand highlight, today's brand partner, Gatemaster. At Gatemaster, we believe technology should never tell operators how to run their businesses. Technology should strengthen the experience you're already creating. And whether it's ticketing, guest commerce, food and beverage, access control, or understanding guest behavior through connected data, our goal is very simple: to help operators create connected experiences that drive revenue without creating more operational complexity. Because disconnected systems create friction, and friction costs money. Today's guest is Gregg Luther, Senior Director of Beverage Programs at Botrista. Gregg transforms entertainment venues into high-margin beverage powerhouses. He spent a significant portion of his career with Darden, opening over 300 locations and managing beverage operations for a 700-unit Fortune 500 chain. From New York City family restaurants to a massive corporate expansion, Gregg has built a career around operational excellence and delivering exceptional guest experiences. One thing he says he can't live without is his family. And we have a lot of conversations about family on this show. So I'm very happy to bring Gregg onto this stage. Gregg, welcome to Live with Sondra.
Sondra, thank you so much. That was a great introduction. Thank you for having me today. Truly
Thank you
appreciate
for being here. I just love saying Botrista.
it. It is a
It's
fun
such,
name.
it
It is
is
a,
such a cool name.
it is. And just to kind of frame it up for everyone, what we do at Botrista is we allow almost everyone to make profitable craft beverages almost anywhere with day one employees. It's a great system. We'll talk in detail about it today, but really as a beverage program and as a machine with ingredients, menus, and support, it really just streamlines everything, makes it incredibly easy to produce what is becoming a focal point in American culture, which is beverage.
Yeah. Well, I want to kind of start with something on a higher level because I think a lot of operators still think beverages are just about like add on purchases. And one of the things that I'm curious about is how these attractions can shift their mindset from this being viewed as a beverage program and more as a primary revenue driver instead of a secondary add on. Should we start
Yeah,
there?
I think people are starting to realize that. And if you look at the shift in American culture, you have a lot of folks out there like McDonald's launching 6 new drinks. You have 7 Brews popping up everywhere, Dutch Bros. Beverage has become an accessory. We look at the Stanley cups that everyone has, and I'm sure everyone has a cupboard full of a dozen or more of the different kind of cups. But it's become part of your accessories to carry around a beverage with you with the badge. We used to say it was a badge brand for beer or for energy drinks, but really it's become part of American culture to always have a beverage. We're very hydrated people. And I think the mindset that we have to change is looking at beverage like an add-on. When we put it in the queue and we have a long line, sometimes it's just an impulse purchase at the end for grab and go. But if you make a destination, people will go out of their way to go and get something unique and fun. So I think it's a little bit of a changing dynamic in the way we look at beverage. It's not just an add-on or something you put on the menu or add to a meal, but something you go out of your way for. And I think a lot of companies out there have already kind of done that. Starbucks is the one you'll turn around and drive down the one-way street to get through the drive-through to get that drink. So really kind of creating that fear of missing out and that next level of innovation is really kind of the key focus for beverage.
Yeah. Well, I'll tell you this morning, today's the last day of school for my kids. And this morning I got hey, it's the last day of school. Do you think we can get coffee on the way to school? It's also something that I think a lot of people see as a celebration. I mean, yeah, I pretty much always have a coffee in hand, but I know for my family, a lot of times it is a special treat, but something that you in an attraction, sure. How many times have I been in an attraction and I wanted a good coffee,
Hmm.
right? Or and we're going to talk about this in just a minute, a boba, an agua fresca, right? Specialty beverages. So, what high margin beverage categories are outperforming traditional soda sales now?
I'll share with you. That's a great question. And looking at the different categories that we deal with, which is coffee, smoothies, shakes, frozen drinks, refreshers, and boba teas. I am seeing, and we have traditional boba too. That's actually where we got started with the machine itself, right? We really got started with traditional boba teas, but we're watching the American popping boba. We kind of separate the two, explode in popularity. Sometimes outselling the regular boba 4-1. And
Wow.
part of that is the marketing, part of that is the advertising. I've been in plenty of parks where the kids start saying boba and they start to parrot that word, and the next thing you know, the parents just have to get in line so the child stops saying boba. So it really just drives interest. It's fun to say. It's a fun experience as well. But the American popping boba, or just popping boba in strawberry and mango, those kind of flavors really add to the experience. And when you think about what they're doing with this drink, they're enjoying a cold beverage, and all of a sudden they get a different flavor, right? As it pops inside their mouth, and it's a different experience. one of my favorite things to watch is people take selfies with these drinks, because not only is it an experience, right? They've had the drink, it
Sure.
tastes, they're looking at it. Next thing you know, the camera's out, the phone's up, and they're trying to take a picture of it. And that tells me that it's a really good experience. So that's probably the best part about my job, is to actually see at the end of the day the results from the programs we put in place. And those beverages that end up on Instagram and selfies and pictures that end up as your accessory for the day, walking around, we notice, right? We see them walking around the park, and it puts a smile on our face as well.
Well, so I'm curious, like, can you walk me through what that buying experience, first of all, the buying experience, but all the way until the drinks in hand?
Oh, absolutely. Well, for Botrista, the machine, the Botrista Pro that we use, can basically make a variety of drinks, as many as you could configure. However, what you'll find with guests is kind of the paradox of choice. You want to make ordering easy, and especially when you're in a theme park or family fun center or a zoo or aquarium. Typically, people are there for a different experience, right? They're there to relax, they're there to see the sights, and they're there to be entertained, and they want to enjoy something tasty. So for the marketing to work, it really has to be visual, for especially for theme park, family fun center. Bright colors, bold names, things that are fun to say, Dragonberry Breeze, Fiesta Festa, things like that kind of roll off your tongue and are fun to say, that have bright colors, purple, green, blue, red, that have fun toppings like red boba and mango and jellies and things. So you can really get creative, and the marketing helps to sell that story. Now, that's only part of it, right? The guest walks up to the line, they see the guest touch point, they're faced with the marketing itself, it pops, they like it, they get in line, and now they're looking to see what their favorite one is. The interesting part about this machine that we have is it can do drinks in about, I'd say, 15 seconds on average. So whether it's frozen or on the rocks, you're looking at about 15 seconds per drink, and it keeps things moving very quickly. It's really good for the employee as well, because part of the experience of the guests, when they walk through that queue, when they choose their drink, when they see their marketing and they're waiting to order their drink, and they're going to interact with that team member, but that team member is going to be confident that they can pull that drink off, because everything is going to be made for them from the Botrista Pro. So as a team member, maybe it's my first day, I turn around, I press a button, I make the drink, I serve it with confidence. It's my first day, my first job. And I put that in the guest's hands. From there, the drink that comes out of the machine is consistent every time. And I think that's the
Yes.
bulb that goes off. So the consistent experience that the guest gets, right, that creates repeat customers. So something
Right.
that's novel, something that's fun, something that's great to look at, very colorful and bright, that's great. It tastes fantastic, and it's always the same, right? It's consistently made each and every time. And I always like to point out that sometimes I'll get not only day one employees, but day one employees on their very first job. And within a couple of minutes, we have them, pressing a few buttons, changing out a blender cup, and making the new drinks for the day. So from the guest experience, from the time they walk up and are hit with the marketing and the bright colors and the flavors and the names, to the speed of service, right? The execution. It's fun and exciting to order something new that you're going to enjoy at the park for the day and make a core memory. But if it takes longer than, I'd say, 30 seconds, 40 seconds to get, that line's going to get longer and longer, and it's going to get overwhelming.
So
So
you touched on a lot of things in this experience that I think I'd like to just talk a little bit more about. So one, training the team. I mean, I know that is I've been working in water parks, theme parks for most of my career, and I know that is a challenge to get everybody on the same page and aligned with regards to the experiences that parks are trying to create. So you mentioned you can throw somebody out on day one because the machine's going to make the drink, and the drink's going to be consistently made every single time, because we know that if one point you have an amazing drink and the next time it's not an amazing drink, the guest doesn't necessarily remember the first time they had the drink. They remember that the experience wasn't good the second time. So you're building that consistent experience, that
right,
consistent experience each time, because we don't have the human element.
and they'll remember the last one they had
Yeah,
always, right?
right.
But yeah, it's the consistency, and I'll share that the company's done a fantastic job with training on the machine. And I was allowed to, I think, my first 3 months working in the entertainment vertical, I was allowed to work out of one of our first customers, SeaWorld Orlando. So for the first 3 months, I was covered in sweat and syrup, working with the team and understanding exactly what they went through. It was a great experience, because here's the thing: you're working with kids that are there for just a couple of weeks on a church program. They're coming in for foreign exchange students. They're seasonal employees, or they rotate them around. And what we learned is we had to be very fast. Now, good news is we'd already been thinking about this. The team already had QR codes and videos. But from there, we also realized that, some of these folks don't want to look at the QR code or to watch the video on the machine. They need something they can hold, some paper, right? A manual that they can touch. And we
Sure.
also incredibly easy and intuitive. And so we focused on making just that, especially for theme parks, family fun centers. It literally takes 5 minutes to train. They're going to press the same 3 buttons. And then for this vertical, we pretty much label the heck out of everything and make sure you have to be brilliant at the basics. For a team member, maybe there's 5 things to know. For a supervisor, maybe there's 10, but it's pretty consistent.
Yeah, I love that. And I think it's important. We talk so much about automation. That's being in technology, that's a conversation that I have to have all the time. Like, how is automation going to affect what's happening in our parks with regards to staffing and training? And to me, this is one of those perfect examples of how automation is actually allowing the team to be more focused on the guest because the drink's being made for them. They're not having to remember how to make a drink. I mean, I'm no mixologist or what do they or bartender, but I imagine that's a hard job, right? I watch them talk to people and still create these amazing beverages.
Yep.
So I'm sure that when we take that one out of the hands of the team, we allow them to be a little more interactive with the guests. Is that something that you saw as well when you were?
I have seen that. It does open up a window to have a conversation with the guest as the drink's being made. And it is a real skill to do both. It is a real skill to be a high-level bartender and make a cocktail and talk to a guest at the same time while you're stirring a martini. And in this case, they're able to talk to the guest. And a lot of times it's for directions. It's another question. It's something to do with the park. But we also have to know that that's a guest touch point for anyone that comes up to that booth in your park or in your fun center. They're talking to an employee, and if that person is so overwhelmed and stressed out with what they're doing that they can't look up and talk to you and answer a question, then you kind of get the whole feeling for the day. Where in this case, the machine kind of is doing the work for them. They just tracks everything as they go, and they can stop, they can pause, they can have a conversation, and they never have to worry about, do I have this ingredient? Do I know how that's made? Or have that back in the day when I was a bartender, I would have to run over to the Rolodex and look up a drink, right? And so that never happens with this machine. It's always right there in front of them.
Yeah, and also let's be real. Peak season chaos is real. You mentioned having, many guests waiting for a drink, and having been in this industry for a long time and also seeing this, seeing the breakdown of the business in the food and beverage area because they were not able to handle that high volume that comes with that peak season chaos. So I'm curious if somebody's watching this, what are some of the biggest warning signs that maybe an operation can look at to see that their beverage systems are currently failing to keep up with this demand of the peak season high volume?
Sure. I think first and foremost, it's got to be your sales, right? If you're not hitting where you think you should be, there's most likely a problem. But when we go into any kind of park or any kind of place where we're going to put a location in, you have to look at the work triangle for the employee first. Employee experience is incredibly important. I always talk about that. You can put things in a very easy triangle for them to work around that helps with the beverage throughput. But long lines are a big indicator that things aren't working, right? And also people grab the grab and go bottles and just kind of discount into whatever's available. All of those things add up to kind of red flags. Now for us with the machine, it's like a consistent revenue generator because of the technology inside it. There's a small little secret tool in there called a flow meter, and it basically tells us the health score on the tube itself inside the machine. That then talks to a tech, and he gets a health score back on your machine, so he can be proactive about service calls or making sure that machine's uptime is increased, or just calling the manager to see if they need anything. So the technology in the machine helps us be more consistent. It helps us really kind of streamline that beverage portion of it. So the uptime on the machine, get longer uptime, more drinks. But the actual setup of the station is so important, right? You have to look at where it's coming in, where it's coming out, where you're making the drinks, the register, the ice, the receiving window, the order window. All of those things are important for the work triangle and the flow to work. The machine is incredibly consistent and fast. We have to give the team members the tools they need to be successful in that environment. And what you create is almost a turnstile of beverage. So it's just a fantastic experience. But ultimately, it's when the guests come back for a second drink, when they pull out that camera for a selfie, that you know you did a good job.
Yeah, that's awesome. Well, we know like attractions are not controlled environments. They got heat, humidity, wind. We're in water parks, there's dust, there's all sorts of things going on. So I'm curious, how do you maintain the drink quality and the machine uptime in those conditions? And I know that you mentioned it is watching, it's monitoring itself, right?
Yep, it takes its temperature every day. Every couple hours, it checks in. But I will tell you, before we got into theme parks, we were almost exclusively interior. We just did inside booths and QSRs and things like that. And so I remember the head of operations, he and I would talk almost every day, and I would tell him, because we were rated for about 86 degrees and indoors. And within the first week of being in Orlando, of course, it was 101 degrees, 100% humidity, and we had a hurricane.
Sure.
So we took that 86-degree rating and threw it out the window, and we decided this machine is really more durable than we ever knew. The volume that came from that first site in SeaWorld Orlando, I think the first couple of days we were hitting in the 300s, and then I think they knocked it out of the park like July 8th at about 700 drinks for that day, and the people just stopped moving. It was just shoulder to shoulder. They were still watching fireworks. But the immediate impact, the immediate sales and volume that we saw from that activation was just so eye-opening that, of course, it led to where we are today, which is close to 100 locations in the last 2 years.
Wow, amazing. Well, we talked a little bit already about the staffing, and I know that so many of the operations that might be watching, one of the common things that they deal with is those operational staffing challenges. And, what's the fastest, most effective way to onboard seasonal staff while still maintaining speed of service and safety standards while using this device?
Well, for the machine itself,
Machine.
for the Botrista Pro, the training literally takes 5 minutes. You're just pressing a few buttons on the screen. It's almost called just-in-time training, because you could walk in on your first day of your first shift, and if I'm standing next to you and give you a little bit of direction, you'd be making drinks in no time. The onboarding and the training is easier than anything that I've experienced before. I think I often talk about a young gentleman that I met at Island H2O. Again, his first day, first job. And he actually thought I was his manager, kept asking me what his break was. But he was an all-star. We spent 3 hours together. I probably talked to him maybe 4 times, gave him some advice, gave him some tips, showed him a couple things. But once they learn where the drinks are on the screen and which blender cup to use, it's a 15-second process in that drink. And he's so proud of himself, right? First day, first job. He's making frappuccinos. He's making frozen coffee drinks. He's making boba teas and agua frescas. And so it was just a great experience for me to watch a day one employee take so well to the program. So the onboarding and training itself has been, I always say this, the chaos is behind the scenes. The QR codes, the videos, the training manuals, everything that the team does back in the home office and in the field to prepare these folks for what they do. All the chaos is behind the curtain. When we finally get out there, it's just pressing 3 buttons and the machine is consistent and continues to deliver exactly what it says it does.
I mean, that's so cool. The thing that I really appreciate about this, because I've been in that situation too, where I'm training the teams of the parks that I'm working with, and it is an incredible feeling when you see them have success, or the process that they were once doing is better because of what you've brought to them. So that's a really cool story, and of you. He thought you were his boss for the time being, but also I think it's important to say, and that a lot of we know statistically a lot of people leave their jobs because they don't feel confident in what they're doing. And what I love about what you're saying and what this machine that you have has done for these staff members is give them confidence in what they're doing from day one.
Absolutely. And they say confidence is the memory of success, right?
Right.
So they experience the success right away. And once I think they get over anything new, any new technology, anything that's going to come out and kind of surprise you or be different from what you're used to, it takes a few seconds to get over it. And when they finally learn what it does, you'll have people basically competing to work with the machine. One of the side notes that I experienced myself firsthand when we were rolling out the first wave last summer was that this machine doesn't give off heat. which is interesting to me because I would watch some of the employees, the team members, walk outside whatever kiosk they were in, and it would be 90 degrees out already. And whatever machines were running inside the booth would be creating another 10 to 15 degrees, kind of this micro, climate inside the kiosk, and they'd have to walk out because it was getting too hot. So one of the nicer things, kind of a side note about the employee experience, not only is it consistent as far as what it does and what you have to do to make that happen, it's also a pleasure to work with.
Yeah.
Again, and I always say it'll progressively tell you what it wants. It's got a very communicative brain that will tell you exactly the levels of ingredients and how fresh they are and how many drinks you have left and what's next to change on the bot as far as bag-in-box ingredients. So the technology inside not only keeps the bot healthy for uptime for technicians, it also helps the team member understand exactly what the levels of ingredients are in the bot. So if they just know those couple of things on how to make a drink, which blender to use, and how to check the ingredients, those three things alone will make them all stars.
Yeah, well, that's awesome because that also makes me think about, one of the big shifts that we're seeing in the industry is really focusing on less gut decisions, more data-driven decisions, which is what you're speaking to because the machine is giving them information that helps them better serve the guests, serve the machine, make sure that it's healthy and that it has what it needs. But I'm curious, with regards to data-driven, how do operators balance having standardized core menu while keeping things fresh within the season or a location for a specific offering? Is this machine able to change what it's offering?
Oh, yeah, not only that, but just to talk about that whole theory as a whole, and I think it
Sure.
applies to whatever beverage program you're working with. There has to be like an 80-20 rule. 80% of your beverage is your core menu, and then you have 20% to play with LTOs or flavor drops or things that can be interesting. And to answer the question, absolutely, we do this constantly with flavor drops and limited time offers or new drinks that we'll put out. If the ingredients are in the bot, we can upload a recipe seamlessly, and then it magically appears, and then you've got your LTO. So that's a pretty cool and unique way to do it. I think when you look at the consumer, they're looking for consistency. And so that 80% rule, like that's my menu, that's what I'm used to, that's home, I feel comfortable with this. And then you can offer me something that I'm familiar with. Margaritas are a great example for this, where you take something familiar and you say add hibiscus to it, or you add a jalapeno to it, or both, and give it a tahini rim. That sounds really good. All of those things, it's a recognizable vehicle in a margarita, but now you've given me some ingredients that are maybe a little different, maybe need an explanation, maybe feel a little more exotic. And so you have a core menu that you pull from. You maybe add a flavor or garnish to one of those ingredients, and you create a different beverage out of that last 20% of your menu. And you can do this with ingredients, with recipes, or just with add-ons to the actual beverage, like garnishes. One of the more successful drink programs I've ever worked on was all based on the actual garnish itself of a little paper cutout garnish that actually rose Beverage Tech as well. So it really is how you dress the drink afterwards as well that kind of makes it eye-appealing for the guest, because you're selling an experience. Like we said in the beginning of the show, beverage has become an accessory, right?
Yeah.
And it's become a revenue driver for parks. And I think they're starting to realize that people have become, it's almost like a hobby for folks. And I thought I was the odd man out. I've been in beverage my entire career, and now I see that people have really embraced it. In fact, I see more folks with T-shirts on soda companies and these great presentations at NRA from all over. I think it's really the revenue revolution for beverage has really taken over, especially when you see the categories exploding across the board the way we have.
Well, and just to your point, I mean, my dad, I took him to have boba a couple years back. He never had it before. And now that's like every time I'm alone with him, he's like, want to get a boba? And so even like I think it crosses generations too. It's something that within our parks and something that we talk about often is how do we offer an experience that is available to everyone, is very inclusive of all generations of people. And I feel like beverages are one of those things that, kids can enjoy, but so can my old dad, right?
Yeah,
You know?
absolutely. There's something for everyone. And you will see that demographically and categorically. You'll see some different age groups gravitate towards some other things. But it is fun to watch an entire family get boba drinks and take pictures.
Yeah.
And for somewhat of a different generation to experience something for the first time. is also very unique, especially when they embrace it. And I'll share with you that I didn't, 3 or 4 years ago when I was, just discovering Boba myself, I didn't know how big of an impact it would have on my career, how much I would be talking about it. But it's become a $4 billion industry.
Yes.
It's had amazing success. And it's one part of what we do. Boba's a lot of fun. But you have to think of that like the add-on or the garnish, right? If you look at the other categories and the other experiences that we provide, I think when you take in the consistency of what we can do, right, with the quality of the ingredients that we use and the ability to have someone increase revenue without labor, it is a fantastic program. And it's one of my favorite projects I've ever worked on.
Yeah, that's awesome. Well, I'll tell you, I mean, I love boba. It's like one of my favorite drinks. We actually have a mall not too far from the house, and I almost always agree to take the kids to the mall because I know I can get one of my favorite bobas in town. And it is just such a thing that becomes part of like you said, it's an accessory. You won't see me at the mall without my boba.
Right, and then it
I like
becomes
my tea.
a core memory as you're talking
Yeah.
about having boba with your family. That becomes a story, just like we talk right now. That becomes a core memory and something that you now associate with that. So, at the end of the day, I realized early on, and I was working in all these theme parks, that all these folks are on vacation. It's a different mindset, and as you're watching that, the social science behind how people react in the parks, how they react to the marketing, how they react to the different drinks. And how they react as a family or a unit is really something special to watch. And so you have to realize at the end of the day, you're creating an experience and a core memory.
Yeah, I appreciate that. And you know what? I'm sure I had somebody on the show not too long ago that does a lot of the scents. Like, when you're in the park and you smell
Yes.
wood burning or you smell flowers, the or food that's being pumped in, sometimes I'll pump food scents out there. And, the conversation that we had was really interesting because it was around like you said, creating memories around the smell.
Yes.
It can take you back to that experience, and I'm sure that taste is very similar,
Oh,
right?
absolutely. I think smells probably has the overreach there. I think I've heard that before, where something will bring back memories of your grandmother's house of fresh baked cookies, or the scent diffusers out there that can produce like a
Yeah.
wood fire grill, or the smell of fresh baked bread. Those are really cool.
Or
Uh,
puke. They got
it's
puke too.
oh great. I guess for
Yeah,
holidays.
for the haunted attractions, I was like, "That's a
I'll
smell I
pass.
don't need to remember, but it exists."
Well, it's all there to create a sense of place, right? And the
Yeah,
smell and the visual, and it's almost like the idea of what you remember. But those things will take you back and unlock a memory,
yeah,
and make you think back to the first experience, and hopefully it was a good one, and then you associate that great feeling with the one you're having right now, right in front of me, right? And
yeah.
so it all comes full circle.
Well, it's full circle, but also, when I think about taste, you know, there there's there's no better taste than a churro from Disneyland in Southern California, in my opinion. I eat churros all over, but they're still the best, right? Same thing with the Dole Whips. You have those experiences with food and drinks that are unique sometimes to the experiences that are being provided at many of these parks. So I kind of want to go back a little bit to the technology with regards to digital ordering and how it's becoming so much more a part of the guest buying journey. And what do you think is the biggest conversation killer around beverage order flow? Like what can be improved there, or what do you think we
I
can
think
do?
if you look at beverage order flow, you have to take into consideration there's multiple ways to get a beverage in parks, in fact in QSRs and restaurants. You can order online, you can order through an app, right, or you can walk up to the window. There's or you can use the kiosk. There's three different ways to order the food. Um, and so basically what you have to understand is all of those are important, right? You have to kind of diversify how it gets to the guest, and you offer more opportunity to order those beverages. Now the whole thing comes down to each and every one of those screens on the app, on the kiosk, or in person. You sometimes risk the paradox of choice. And what we've seen is when you get menus, say up over 16 to 20 drinks, and some folks really want to take full advantage of what the machine can do. And mathematically, you could put as many drinks as you could possibly think of flavor wise into a machine. But in this case, if you have that many drinks, it freezes the guests. They get paralysis by analysis, right? They're stunned. I sometimes get this when I go to a restaurant with the menu's too big, and I'll default to
Yeah.
grilled salmon, right? I don't want to read the menu anymore. So making it easy for the guests to find the right beverage, and maybe it's a beverage of their choice that they want. Maybe it's a mango nado or a margarita. That's a cool thing. But you as an operator, what you want to do is focus on that one that's not only eye appealing, profitable, but easy to make and quick. And so what we like to do for our programs is focus on, say, a blue raspberry lemonade with red popping boba on top. And you hero that out on the merchandising, and it drives margin and momentum towards that beverage. And that way you're basically hoping or kind of steering the guests towards the best choice for both them and you. You know it's going to be a great experience. It's a great seller. It's also very profitable for you. So that's a win-win for both of us. And having it easily made, very quickly, that's a win for the line of the guests and bringing the queue down.
And can there be like signature drinks that
Oh,
this? Yeah. Okay.
well, here's the thing. I mean, once the drink is out of that machine, there's certain things you can do to it to make it your own. Now, the blender is actually strong enough that you can throw a brownie or a cookie in it. We call those inclusions. So some of the coffee drinks we'll make, like a frappuccino, you could throw an entire brownie in there, or throw some M&Ms in there. So there's really unique things to do after that. I've had some folks actually increase the amount of beverage that comes out of the machine so they could use the big souvenir cups and plus that particular offer up as well. But there really is no limit to what they can do afterwards. We have the ability on the machine to actually make a multiple drinks. I think in some cases up to 3 of the same kind, just for speed of service. And that also helps with throughput when you have multiple of the same drinks. But ultimately, as far as a signature drink, it is really up to you and your imagination as far as what you can do in the machine or when the drink gets out of the machine.
So, looking ahead, Greg, how are drink bot technologies helping solve connectivity and remote monitoring challenges in large outdoor attraction environments?
Okay, so if I understand the question, basically, how are we helping those that are kind of far out and really in a theme park? You may never see your manager again from the very first day, right? And
Yeah.
in the morning, you might not see them again until about 8 or 9 o'clock at night when you're closing down. The technology in the machine, again, communicates consistently to the tech, and they have a dashboard in front of them. And this is kind of interesting. It's kind of cool for me. So they will know if there's a health problem, say if one of the pumps is not working at full capacity. They'll get a little red flag, and they'll do a little investigating, maybe do a little interior check on the modem to see exactly what's going on inside the computer. But ultimately, it keeps everything kind of proactive. And so as a revenue driver, now you can be consistent and proactive about your revenue. And those 3 things together, consistent, proactive revenue, is something that our machine produces because the system's in place, right? If everything is together, if the work triangle and the employee experience is good, the marketing pops, the people are coming through the park, they're getting a great drink, they're taking a selfie, they're having a sip, they're walking down the boardwalk, and they're making core memories, and everything comes together. And that is what I do in a nutshell. That entire experience chain with the guests is really something to watch, especially when you're in the park and you're watching the social science of moving people from one area to the other and getting them to come into an area where you can get more revenue per guest or provide a better experience as well. I think that's a big part of it.
Well, I think it's interesting because how big of a footprint does something like this need in order to?
Yeah, that's a great question. I always say it's it's much taller than a dishwasher, but that's about the space it takes up. It's about 4 square feet of space. It's about 5'11" as far as height goes. So it's about the size of a Pepsi cooler or Coke cooler, as far as what it takes up to. And it takes a standard power, standard drain, and a 3/8 cold water connection.
Yeah, because I think that's a great idea. Like if you've got a dead, stale area in your park, this could be a good addition.
There's been 2 really interesting kind of trends that came out with the use of the Botrista. One, we were put in primary locations with great cross traffic and absolutely knocked out of the park. So when it's its own feature, when it's in a good place, it's a revenue generating machine. You're putting a revenue center inside a revenue center. The other trend that we saw was sometimes we would be put in places to draw people in. And one of the best stories was multiple times we were told we could never keep that open. We could never keep it staffed. And then we put the Botrista program in there. We put a very simple menu in, very limited, maybe a 5-drink menu, something easy to train, easy to execute very quickly. And it becomes a mainstay, and it becomes staffed, and the cups sold daily continue to impress. And so I still go back to that conversation when we picked that second location, and we were told, we've never been able to staff it, and now that particular location has been up and running for 2 years. So
Very cool.
yeah,
Well, this is such a cool conversation, and what I really love about this conversation is that while we started talking about beverages, we're really talking about removing friction for not only the guests but the staff. That's the thing I didn't expect about this conversation today. That
it's a light bulb moment for sure. I
yeah,
think the machine is a tool, and it's a great tool. And it's a very unique tool that can make a lot of different beverages, and it can take your day one employee and make them into an all-star for sure. But I think once operators see this is what happens all the time, and I love it. So sometimes I'll meet a new client, we'll find a great opportunity, and we'll put a bot in, and then a few months later, they're like, Greg, either I've got someone else that wants a bot, or I want a second bot here in the park, right? I want to continue to grow this because they can see what it does. You can draw people into areas that were maybe a little underwhelming before. Now there's a reason to go there. We've seen these programs work so well as standalones. They also work well with a number of add-ons. They can work with churros and donuts and waffles and things like that. But I think as a beverage destination and the utility that you can offer with the different menus, it's just kind of a one-stop shop for everything you'd want beverage. So it's been, again, I think throughout my career, we talked about this earlier, from running family restaurants in New York to working in corporate America on restaurants and opening all these chains. This was like the culmination of everything I did in my entire career. And to put a revenue center inside a revenue center, and then to partner with someone in food and beverage at the parks who gets to see that success and enjoy that, that's been a lot of fun. It's not only the guest experience, but it's also the client experience. I think when you can deliver on your promises, when you can come through and develop menus and experiences for people and bring their ideas to life, because we're basically the chip with the salsa on it. We're just a vehicle, right? We're carrying it to your guests, and we can take your vision and absolutely deliver it. And that has been the fun part. I've spent the majority of my career working on beverage programs and restaurants and recipes. And this has been something that just kind of put it all in one package and answered the final question, right? We have spent so much time grading tests, training people, getting them to learn a recipe. Day one employees having to look at papers back and forth and making sure they're measuring everything. If I have to watch one more person pull out a jigger and a recipe card while they're looking and making the drink, it just kind of makes you shake your head, where now you can be more engaged with the guest. You can actually go and get the churro or the pretzel or the waffle. You can talk about other things. The machine is going to queue up the drinks for you. You're going to pop them on the screen. You're going to hit start. And by the time that guest has their churro in hand, you're going to turn around with a freshly made beverage, and they're going to be impressed.
yeah, that's awesome. Well, what a cool place that you're in the attractions world. And also, I know that because we've had conversations in the past, like this is such a cool space to work in.
It's
It's a
not a
cool
bad
place
view.
to be. What we're doing for the guests and the experiences that we're creating and the memories that are being made, it's really cool to see technology like this coming together with what's happening in our parks and really elevating the experience in a lot of ways because I mean I believe technology is part of the experience. It
Absolutely. I think
this
it's
is
become
where
an
we're going.
expectation for guests. And I think there's a happy medium on what the guest experience is. And you're always going to have service as a premium. You're always going to have great bartenders and people who provide experiences.
Sure.
This machine basically, it still needs a person, right? We still need someone to engage with the guests, to talk to the folks, to make a recommendation on drinks, to make adjustments. It is not something that doesn't go unmanned, and there is still an experience and a personal human connection when you're getting this great beverage. We just take all the work out of it. So now
Yeah.
your personality as a team member, right? Our day one employee, his personality can now come out and he can feel confident serving that drink, and he can feel good about it. And again, that confidence, he'll want to come back on his second day. So in a way, we've seen this happen. It'll actually help reduce turnover because you're providing a consistent experience for that employee as well.
I love that.
Yep. And that's it.
Well, if somebody watching today would like to get a hold of you, what's the best way they can do that?
Well, you can just connect with me on LinkedIn, or you can shoot me an email at greg.luther@botrista.com.
Very nice. Well, thank you so much for being here and sharing all this information and for helping, the industry continue to create better experiences and advocating for better experiences for not only the guests, but also the team members. I really appreciated that part of the show today.
Thanks. It's actually one of my favorite parts. I think if you put all those things together, if it's a profitable program, if it's supported well, and ultimately when the front of the house team, when the team members embrace it, you've done a good job.
Yes. Well, thanks, Greg. Thanks for being here.
Absolutely. Thank you so much. It was a pleasure.
We'll see you soon.
Thanks, guys.
All right. Well, thank you again to Greg for coming on the show and for sharing so much about his experience, his expertise, and the really cool work that's being done over at Botrista to help our parks create more enjoyable beverage experiences. I think this is a really, really cool product and a really cool offering to have. And I want to thank everybody for joining us today. Thank you for listening. And thank you for watching. If you are watching and you enjoyed today's conversation, I would love it if you would like, subscribe, and especially follow our new YouTube channel. We have Live with Sondra on YouTube, and we're trying to grow that, and we can't do that without you. So I really do appreciate you taking time to go over there and also if you're watching on replay, #replay, let me know you were here. If there's questions that you have, add them to the chat, because my team and we do monitor those chats, and we'll be happy to get those questions answered for you. But on this show, we are bringing leaders, operators, and innovators that are shaping the experience economy. So again, thank you, Greg, for being here. Thank you for everyone who listened. Thank you to my team for making this show happen. I'm Sondra, and remember, the experience starts long before our guests get on a ride. It starts with a transaction, and sometimes that is one of the most important interactions you can have with your guests, and so we want to make sure that that's smooth and memorable. So until next time, this is Live with Sondra, and I'll see you soon.